On a cold March afternoon in 2018, a young woman stumbled toward a farmhouse in Dunn County, Wisconsin. She was in visible distress, with dark stains across her face and a disturbing mark etched into her forearm. She told the farmer she had been through a harrowing ordeal. She looked like someone who had barely escaped. But as the police arrived, the narrative began to shift. The woman was Ezra McCandless, and in the woods nearby, a young man named Alex Woodworth had met a tragic end. This wasn't just an isolated incident. It was the start of one of the most bizarre forensic investigations in recent history.
To the female, she's sitting in the dining area. Female Hawaiian or simple 140, 5'5", medium build, wearing a...
To understand the tragedy, we have to look at the life Ezra McCandless had built. Ezra was known for her artistic flair and a constant need for reinvention. At the time of the incident, she was caught in a chaotic emotional loop between two men, her boyfriend Jason and her former lover Alex Woodworth. Ezra had recently told Jason she was pregnant, a claim that would later be proven false. Prosecutors would argue that Ezra was a woman losing control of her narrative. She needed to be the center of attention, and on that fateful day in March, she lured Alex to a secluded spot under the guise of talking things out. Detectives found Alex's body in a brutal scene. He had been stabbed over a dozen times, but Ezra's injuries were superficial. The word boy carved into her arm was strangely neat, almost as if it had been done by someone looking in a mirror. Forensic experts noted that her clothes were muddy, but her wounds didn't match her story of a violent struggle. The biggest red flag? The knife. It was a tool Ezra had taken from her own father's house. During interrogation, her story changed 3 times. First, it was a random attacker. Then, it was Alex who attacked her. Finally, she claimed self-defense. But the physics of the crime scene said otherwise. Ezra McCandless defined herself as an artist. But on that snowy March day in 2018, in the woods of Wisconsin, the story she wrote wasn't fiction, it was a bloody reality. When her ex-boyfriend Alex Woodworth was found with 16 stab wounds, Ezra offered a defense that shocked the world. I was the victim. The trial of Ezra McCandless became a media sensation. Ezra took the stand, attempting to portray herself as a terrified victim. However, the prosecution focused on her history of acting and her desire for drama. They highlighted how she had staged her own disappearance in the past. Expert witnesses pointed out that Alex had no defensive wounds on his hands. He had been caught completely off guard. The jury watched hours of Ezra's interrogation, noting her lack of genuine emotion when describing Alex's final moments. The victim persona was failing. We are analyzing Ezra's infamous 30-minute testimony through a psychological lens. Is this a tragic story of survival, or the final performance of a narcissistic mind? Let's listen to the opening minutes of Ezra's account of that day.
Okay. So let's go back to him coming over. He gives you a hug.
Yes.
What happens after he gives you the hug?
After he gives me the hug, and I tense. I think he felt that because he let go after he held me for a while. And I think he could see that I was breathing. I was trying to breathe through some anxiety, and he suggested that maybe I should go lay down or look around in the car again.
Okay, when you say you were breathing, can you describe what you mean to all of us?
What I mean is I'm sitting there and I'm just a lot is running through my mind, and I was breathing heavily. My anxiety was heightened at that time. I was trying to breathe through it, so I was trying to deeply breathe. It wasn't working too well.
Is deep breathing something you've used to try to control anxiety?
Yes.
Did Alex say anything else to you after he had eventually come over?
He suggested that I might want to lay down for a while and maybe just relax.
What did you think when Alex said that?
I just shrugged and was like, all right, maybe, and I decided to walk back towards the car.
When you walked back to the car, did you go in the car?
I went into the car, yes.
Where in the car did you return?
I returned to the car. I returned to the driver's side. Back door was open, and I approached into the car. I kind of looked around a little bit, moved some things a little more, and that's how I was getting into the car, was from the back.
Why were you going to the back seat and not the front seat?
I was thinking maybe he's right, I need to lay down for a little bit.
Did you lie down?
I did.
At some point after lying down, did Alex join you?
Yes, he did join me.
How were you laying down when he came over?
When he came over, when he first came over, I was still in a somewhat crouched position. So I felt him, I heard him approach, and I laid down. I got into the car further, and I laid down on my back.
When you laid on the back, what happened with Alex?
When I laid down, Alex had started to come into the car with me and position himself above me. He's, you could say, straddled.
Was Alex speaking to you at that point?
Yes, he started to speak to me at this point, yes.
Can you tell us the words you heard Alex speak to you?
What he said to me at this time was, he started to describe me, and not in a third person sense. And he also started to speak of how he deserves this.
Well, let's just stop, because I don't know what you mean by he describes you in a third person sense. Can you tell us specifically what you remember him saying?
Specifically, what I remember him saying is, Ezra is beautiful. Ezra is my shining sun. Ezra, in the sense he kept saying my name and then something after that. Ezra is so handsome.
Did you notice that? Ezra's voice remains remarkably stable, while she describes Alex allegedly speaking about her in the third person. When she repeats the phrase, Ezra is handsome, she sounds like she's reading a biography of someone she barely knows. In psychology, this could be dissociation, but in a criminal analysis, we have to ask, is Ezra recalling a traumatic memory, or is she reciting a script she's memorized? Note, her claim of being frozen. Using perceived helplessness as a shield is a common tactic. By hiding her hands under the table and avoiding direct eye contact, she may be trying to mask the pressure of maintaining a fabrication rather than suppressed trauma.
All right, so Ezra is beautiful, Ezra's my shining sun, Ezra is handsome. Had he ever talked to you that way before?
He hadn't talked to me. He's said pet names before. He's sweet talked me before, but this was different because it was disconnected. It was third person.
So in other words, are you, like before he would say, you are this, you are that?
He would say, you're beautiful, you're handsome, you're this, you're that. But at this point, at this time, he was saying Ezra is, instead of, it was more as if I was an object.
All right, so you're feeling that he's referring to you as an object. What else are you feeling at that point?
At that point, I'm not so sure how to really think about what was happening. I was a little confused because he hadn't come on to me earlier that day. I didn't think he was going to do this. I was starting to feel my anxiety come back full force.
Did he do anything with respect to your glasses?
Yes, he started to do things slowly and methodically. He first removed my glasses.
When your glasses are off, can you see?
No, not at all. Barely past a couple inches in front of my face.
So when he removed your glasses, what were you able to see?
I was able to see that he was in front of me. I can't see much.
I think you were saying that in addition to his referring to you in the third person, he was also saying something else. Can you tell me what else you heard?
That I was handsome and that he deserved this. I had betrayed him. I went back to Jason. He was upset about this and that he deserved me.
After Alex says he deserved you and takes off your glasses, what does he do?
He then takes my scarf and he places it over my eyes. And I felt his hand on my face and he asked me if I could see him. And I told him, no, I cannot.
So he puts this, you tell him you can't see him. What does he do next?
After he asks me a few times if I can see him, and I tell him, no, I can't see you, Alex. I can't see him, but I can feel him start to touch my clothes.
What's going through your head?
What's going through my head at this time is I don't know what I was assuming what I thought I knew what he wanted, and I wasn't sure, and I was anxious, and what was going on was going through my head.
Were you going to tell him to stop?
I hadn't really voiced much until after he had kissed me.
Then, after kissing you, but about the other things he was doing, touching your clothes, caressing you, or whatever he did. I'm not sure what he did, but...
No, I just was quiet and I was still.
Okay, I want to get back to his actions as you were quiet.
Yes.
What is he doing besides kissing you? What does he do?
After he kisses me and I pull my head back a bit, I felt he touched the hem of my sweater. I could feel a pull on it. And I wasn't sure at the time really what he was doing, but I could feel it start to give away. It felt looser, and my sweater had been opened.
Did you know how he had opened your sweater?
After I felt my sweater start to give away, I took off the scarf and I could see that he was cutting my sweater.
All right. When he kissed you, did you tell him to stop?
Yes.
Why say stop about the kissing?
He didn't ask me if he could kiss me. I couldn't see he was going to do it. It was so sudden and it caught me off guard, and it was strange.
It caught you off guard. You asked him to stop. Did he stop kissing you or continue?
He tried to kiss me again, but I tried to pull away with my limited room where I was.
So now...
This is the turning point. Ezra claims Alex began cutting her clothes and sexually assaulting her. However, the forensic evidence and the blood splatter at the scene suggest a different story. Many of the 16 stab wounds were located on Alex's back, while Ezra repeatedly uses the word frozen to describe her state of mind. Her actions were those of an intensely active and aggressive assailant. Pay attention to the prosecutor's upcoming line of questioning. It's designed to dismantle Ezra's helpless victim image by asking the one question she can't logically answer. If you were so terrified, why didn't you run when you had the chance, instead of picking up the knife and returning to the struggle?
He's cut your sweater open. Do you tell him stop then?
No, I froze.
What does he do after he cuts your sweater?
After he cuts through my sweater, he then starts to cut through my second shirt.
Do you move then?
No.
Why not?
I'm just trying to breathe. I'm frozen. I don't know what to do.
When you say frozen, what do you mean?
What I mean when I'm frozen is that I'm still. I'm limp. I'm not moving or resisting or fighting. I'm there.
Why?
I didn't know what to do.
After he cuts through your shirt, what's the very next thing you feel?
The next thing I feel is that my second shirt starts to get cut, and I can feel that he's cutting it, but I also feel a slight prick or something, And after that, he moves to my pants.
Were you able to see what he was cutting with?
Yes,
What was it?
it was a knife.
Now, about that knife, had you taken that knife out during the time that you were stuck?
No,
When you came back to the car before you got in the back seat, had you noticed that something was different?
I noticed something was different. I looked into the front of my car, and I noted how it was strange that my wallet was out of the console and that my middle console was open. I thought it was strange.
Let's pause and focus on her tone. What do you expect from someone describing a knife touching their most sensitive areas? Terror? A trembling voice? Instead, Ezra recounts these events in a monotone, matter-of-fact way, as if she's describing a grocery list. In psychological profiling, this is often flagged as incongruent affect. Furthermore, notice how even in the middle of an alleged assault, she emphasizes her desire to help Alex. This is a recurring theme in narcissistic victim profiling. The subject tries so hard to appear virtuous and merciful that it begins to defy human logic. Is this a victim trying to help her executioner, or a perpetrator trying to justify her overkill?
Let me take you back to the cutting. So
Yes.
He's cut through your sweater, he's cut through your shirt, he's cut a little bit into your t-shirt, you have felt something on your
Yes.
stomach, I believe. And after that, what does he do next?
After that, he starts to cut through my pants. He's starting near the button, well, below that. It's on the front of my pants, or the inner thigh, you can say. I can feel that he's pulled on it to give room so that he can cut through.
Was there, besides your pants, was he cutting through anything else at this point?
At this point, he had cut through my tights as well.
Where on your pants and your tights has he cut through at this point?
At this point, he had cut through the inner thigh area of my pants and tights.
After he's cutting through your pants and your tights, what happens next? Do you feel anything different at some point?
What was different at this point is that I could feel the knife start to graze and cut into my skin.
Where in your skin do you feel it?
I feel it on my... I feel it. It's inside the hip region. I could just feel a pinch, and I could feel that the knife had been meeting contact with
Are
me.
you moving?
At this point, I was still frozen.
After he feels you feel him cut you in the vaginal area and in the inner thigh, what does he do next?
After I felt that, at this point, I had started to shift, and I brought my leg up.
Okay, I'm going to do before you brought your leg up, though.
Yes.
All right? What I want to ask you, as you're there, as you're frozen, as you're thinking,
Yes.
what is going through your mind?
Before I even moved, what was going through my mind is he's going to do what he wants. He's going to take anything he wants. He's going to use me. I don't know what to do. I'm terrified. I couldn't move.
Had Alex ever cut you with a knife before?
No.
What is different about this as you're laying there and he's cutting you with this knife?
What's so different about this is that in the past, only clothes had been cut, but this is the first time he ever cut me with the knife.
What are you afraid of now?
I'm afraid he's going to kill me.
As you're afraid he's going to kill you, at some point, why are you afraid he's going to kill you? Let me just first ask that.
I'm afraid he's going to kill me because he has a knife, and I'm afraid that he's going to take whatever he wants and he's just going to finish this.
All of the things you've read about Alex, and I'm not going to go through his books and his philosophies again, were the things that he had talked about with you, the names he had called you, the discussions about sacrifice, consent, did
Yes.
that, I mean, is your mind swirling? What are you thinking?
My mind is running through his words that he deserves this. My mind is running through all of the possibilities of what he could want, of what he's going to take. I was wondering if he was going to kill me and then he was going to kill himself so that he didn't have to be alone.
All right, you're wondering this. At some point, do you manage to work yourself out of your frozen state?
Yes.
Tell us when that happens.
When this happens, I bring my leg up to position it more between Alex's legs.
When you say you bring your leg up, do you know which leg you're talking about?
Yes.
All right, and at this point, do you feel anything?
Yes, I feel him run the knife down a few times, the pants open, and then I feel that he punctures my leg.
At the point where he's running the knife and cutting
Yes.
you and punctures you, are you, besides the fact that you've brought your leg up, are you moving your leg at any point yet?
No, I was just closing off the area of my...
I know that we're talking about this slowly, but in terms of the time it's taking as he's doing this, what, fast, slow?
It was very slow at first. It was slow. It was very slow. And then as I brought my leg up is when it started to happen faster. Things were starting to happen now.
After you feel the puncture in your leg,
Yes.
and he's cut these, into your leg,
Yes.
what do you do to try to move?
What I'm doing to try to move is I have my right hand gripping the side of the seat. I was just thinking maybe if I can pull myself away, maybe if I can do something, I can get out, I can get away from this. I need to move. I need to start to move. I was screaming at myself internally, you need to move.
Are you saying anything?
No.
Did you try somehow to reach for anything with your other hand, your left hand?
Yes, when my leg was pulled up, my leg is pulled up and I'm closing off the area of my vagina. I take my hand, my free hand, my left hand, and I grab for and bat at the knife that is puncturing my leg.
What do you feel when that happens?
I feel like a pinch or a prick on my hand every time I go to block it.
So when you feel that cutting into your hand, what do you do with your hand?
I pull my hand away.
Do you do something else then to try to resist him?
Yes, my
What do you
hand,
do? Go ahead, I
as
was
my
just gonna
leg
ask what you did.
is between his knees at that point, gripping the seat, I decided then to knee him in the groin.
What happens when, you decided to knee him in the groin. Did you actually do it?
Yes.
What happens then?
He reacts and he drops the knife at that point.
When he drops the knife, what do you do?
Instantly, I grab the knife and I've used my arm to pull myself into the footwell. And that's when everything really starts to happen.
All right, I'm going to talk to you about everything starting to happen. You have the knife.
Yes.
What are you doing with the knife?
At this point, I have the knife. I'm trying to get out of the car. I need to get out. I need to get away, is all I'm saying. And I can't get out of the car, and he's still grabbing for me. And this is when I began to defend myself and Alex.
Now, you're saying you want to get out of the car. You're no longer lying down on the seat with your head by the passenger side door. Where in the car are you at this point as you're trying to get out and you're holding this knife?
At this point, when the knife is in my hand, I am trapped between the open door and the middle of the car, so where the console would be, or the seat.
You said you grabbed the knife and you start.
Yes.
Where's your back at that point, or which direction are you facing it?
I'm facing, what would be forward at this point is the rear of the car. I'm facing Alex, but my back is pressed against the driver.
Where is Alex?
Alex is in front of me. He's in between, he's not directly in front of me, but he's in between me and the door.
Are you trying to get out?
Yes.
You said you're unable to get out, so what do you start doing?
What I start doing is defending myself.
Ezra claims she attacked only to survive. However, the autopsy report reveals the sheer brutality of the act. Many of the wounds were deep enough to suggest overkill, a state typically fueled by extreme rage or a premeditated intent to finish a task. Ezra's defense of, "I don't remember, it happened so fast," is a common psychological refuge for offenders attempting to distance themselves from the reality of their actions. Crucially, once Alex exited the vehicle, Ezra had a clear path to escape. Instead of fleeing, she stayed. In her mind, she is painting a scene where Alex is the monster. But the forensic evidence suggests she was the one holding the brush.
As Alex is grabbing me, I started stabbing him anywhere and everywhere I could. I didn't know what was happening. I just needed to get away. I just needed to get out of the car.
Were you consciously aiming for any particular place when you were stabbing him?
No, it was happening fast, and it was anywhere and everywhere.
Do you have any memory of the order in which you stabbed him at all?
No.
Do you have any memory in particular of him attacking you as you're stabbing?
Yes, as I'm trying to get out of this car, as I'm trying to make my way to the open door, Alex grabs me by the throat, and I'm pressed, my body and my head is pressed against the driver's side back of the seat.
And is this happening before you stabbed him, as you're starting? Do you remember?
It's happening as I was stabbing him.
Okay, so he's grabbing you by the throat. You saw a red mark from these pictures on your throat?
Yes.
Is that where he was grabbing you?
Yes.
And besides grabbing you in the throat, what else is he doing to you? Do you know?
His hand slips from my throat and it moves to the back of my head where he grabs my hair.
What happens when he grabs your hair? Do you remember?
I remember as he grabbed my hair, he was holding it very tight and he was pulling my face towards him. And I remember that's when I had stabbed him inside the head.
Why did you do that?
It was a response to being pulled so close to his face.
When you did that and you're stabbing him and he's grabbing you by the throat, he's pulling your hair, as this is going on, at some point does he let go?
Yes.
When he lets go, what does he do?
He didn't just let go, he had ripped my hair out from my head. And he then got out of the car.
When he gets out of the car, well, let me ask this, first of all. Before he gets out of the car and you're doing the stabs, are you trying to kill him?
No.
What are you trying to do?
I just want to get away. I need to get out of the car. I need to get away as fast as I could.
So why do you keep stabbing him while you're still in the car?
Because he wouldn't let go. He wouldn't let me out. I was terrified.
He wouldn't let go of you?
No.
Where?
My throat and my head.
When he lets go and he goes out of the car, do you run after him and keep stabbing him?
No,
What do you do?
I was crumpled. I was inside the car still, and I was sitting inside the car on the driver's side seat.
At some point, do you get out of the car?
Yes.
And where is Alex at that point in time?
Alex is standing up near what was the green trailer.
Did Alex say something to you as he's standing up there?
Yes. I was confused. I didn't...
Well, I just want you to tell us
What he said
What
to
he
me,
said.
what I heard him say to me was that he needed help to go to the bathroom. He needed help doing this.
When he said to you he needs help going to the bathroom, what do?
I instantly just wanted to help him, so I got out of the car and I approached him.
When you approached him, how are you feeling when you approach him?
Disconnected and dizzy and full of I couldn't breathe.
Well, if you're so afraid, why do you go by him?
I just wanted to help. That's my first response, is to help someone.
So you go by him, you're going to
Yes.
help him,
Yes.
and at this point, what does he do?
When I go to approach to help him, I come near him, and this is when he grabs me again, and he pulls me very close and tight to his body.
Where's the knife?
The knife is in my hand still.
When he pulls you close and tight to your body, what are you thinking?
He's going to kill me.
What do you do as you're thinking he's going to kill you?
I reached around and just quickly stabbed him in the side, hoping he would let go.
Why do you think he's going to kill you at this point as he's grabbing you close?
I thought he was going to pull me down to the ground and get the knife.
Why do you reach around and stab him? Why, I mean, are you not face to face or?
It's because I'm pulled tight to his body, and that was the only place my arm could go.
Did you stab him anymore after that?
No.
All right, after this last one, where do you go?
I retreated back into the car and I sat there shivering.
When you're doing that, were you watching at all what Alex was doing?
Yes.
What did you see him do?
Alex took his coat off and he laid it on the ground near the trailer, and then he proceeded to lay down on the coat.
You know, I think I had forgotten to ask you, but in this earlier struggle in the car, had your boots come off at all?
Yes, one of my boots had come off.
Do you know which one it was?
No.
And did you later take off another boot?
Yes.
Had you done that yet at this point?
No.
He's laying on his coat. Is he talking at all?
I could hear him speaking, yes.
Can you hear what he's saying?
I could hear him saying that he had been waiting for this for so long. I heard him saying strange things about roommates, and he just kept saying he's been waiting for this for so long.
After you hear that, what do you do?
I was still in the car at that point, and I was breathing, and I kept saying out loud what's happening, what's going on, and this is when I decided I needed to go. I needed to get away.
All right, so you decide you need to go. Are you kind of like almost feeling like things are black at all, or are you conscious, or what's going on with you?
I'm feeling like I feel dizzy and faint, like I can't catch my breath, that things are starting to go black at the sides. It felt like I was in a tunnel, like I could only see so much around me.
Does Alex keep talking, or eventually, or, does he stop at some point?
He was not talking anymore at that point.
And when you're in the car, do you find your glasses?
Yes.
Was this the first time you found your glasses?
Yes.
Up until that point, you had problems with what you could see?
Yes, I couldn't see at all. I hadn't put my glasses on yet.
When you put your glasses on, what do you do next?
I put my glasses on and I could see everything, and I'm sorry. This is the point when I decided I needed to go. I needed to get out of there. I was panicking. I couldn't breathe.
Did you see a phone?
Yes.
Whose phone?
I seen Alex's phone.
Did you take it?
Yes.
Why?
In my head, I wanted to call the police. I wanted to get help. I wanted to do anything I could do.
All right, at that point, you're thinking that as you leave the car, do you still have the knife?
Yes.
What do you do with that knife?
As we reach the conclusion of her testimony, Ezra continues to play the role of the compassionate observer, even while describing Alex's final moments. But it's her admission of carving the word boy into her own arm that finally shatters the narrative. She claims she doesn't know why she did it, a convenient blank spot in an otherwise detailed story. The jury didn't see this as an artistic outburst. They saw it as a calculated attempt to stage a crime scene.
What I did with that knife is I looked down and I opened my sleeve with the tip of it, and I hastily scratched the word boy into my arm.
Okay, everyone wants to know, why did you scratch boy into your arm?
I've thought about it, and when I think about this, I don't know. At that time, it's something that just happened. It was just a reaction. I don't know why I did this.
After only 3 hours of deliberation, the jury found Ezra McCandless guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. She was sentenced to life in prison. This case remains a haunting reminder of how easily the lines between reality and fiction can blur in the mind of a manipulator.
Please rise. We, the jury, find the defendant, Ezra J. McCandless, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in the information. And the answer to the special verdict question is yes, use a dangerous weapon. And you may be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, is this your verdict? All right, I'm going to do what's called polling the jury, and I'm going to ask each of you if this is your verdict. And I'm going to ask you by your juror number.
Alex Woodworth was described by friends as a kind, philosophical soul. His life was cut short not by a random act of violence, but by a calculated plan born of obsession. In the end, the forensic evidence spoke for Alex when he no longer could. When Ezra McCandless walked into that farmhouse, she didn't just bring a story. She brought a physical map of an attack written on her own body. But for forensic pathologists, skin tells a story that the tongue cannot. Let's look at the word boy carved into her arm. In a real struggle, a life-and-death fight for a knife, wounds are jagged. They are uneven. They show hesitation marks or defensive slipping, but the carving on Ezra's arm? It was deliberate. It was neat. Forensic experts pointed out that the letters were oriented perfectly for someone looking down at their own arm or into a mirror. It wasn't the work of a frantic attacker. It was the work of an artist with a canvas. Now let's look at Alex Woodworth. While Ezra had superficial scratches, Alex had 16 separate wounds. In true crime, the overkill factor often points to a high emotional state, either rage or a cold. Calculated need to ensure the victim cannot speak. The autopsy revealed a chilling detail. The majority of the lethal wounds were to Alex's back and the back of his neck. This is a forensic smoking gun. If Ezra was acting in self-defense against a man who was attacking her, why was he stabbed in the back? The physics of the encounter suggest Alex was either kneeling, cowering, or walking away when the first blow was struck. Then there is the weapon itself, a small, green-handled knife. Forensic toolmark analysis compared the width and depth of the wounds on Alex to the serration and blade profile of that specific knife. It was a perfect match. But the most damning evidence wasn't just the knife fit, was the mud. Forensic examiners looked at blood spatter patterns on Ezra's clothing. If she had been pinned down and attacked as she claimed, the blood would have sprayed in a specific low-velocity pattern. Instead, they found cast-off blood. This happens when a weapon is raised and lowered repeatedly in a striking motion. The blood literally flies off the blade due to centrifugal force. Finally, the mud dynamics. Ezra claimed she ran for her life through the woods. But when investigators looked at her shoes, which she had discarded, and compared them to the scene, something was wrong. Alex's body was found in a deep, muddy trough. He was covered in it because he had been fighting for air in the dirt. Ezra's story required her to be under him, being crushed into the mud. Yet, the mud patterns on her leggings and torso didn't align with a ground struggle. They aligned with someone who had been kneeling over a body. Science didn't just suggest Ezra was lying, it proved it was physically impossible for her story to be true. Cases like this remind us that the truth is often hidden in the smallest details. If you're finding this deep dive insightful, hit the like button. It helps the algorithm bring these stories of justice to more people.